Jefferson, a community located in the heart of Mississippi. Currently consisting of approximately 700 square miles, Jefferson houses nearly 28,000 residents. In 1936, however, the population consisted of 25,000, 6,000 white and 19,000 African American. Prior to the Civil War, the community consisted of several large plantations belonging to the Greniers, McCaslins, Compsons, and Sartorises. Later on, however, the county became mostly small farms. In the 1920s and early 1930s, Jefferson was plagued by the brewing racial frustration attributable to the Jim Crow laws, as well as vexation with the Prohibition. On August 18th, 1931, a fire consumed Joanna Burden's household, leaving Joe Christmas, Miss Burden's rumored lover, as chief suspect. Upon further police investigation, Miss Burden's neck was slashed, and the fire likely stood as a cover-up.
The ongoing investigation caused mass hysteria within the streets of Jefferson. Miss Burden's nephew in New Hampshire offered a $1,000 reward for the capture of the murderer. Search parties with bloodhounds combed the countryside for Joe Christmas, a pursuit lasting several days. Upon the onset of the fire, however, an outsider, a pregnant woman of about 20 years old, arrives in Jefferson. The fire had nothing to do with Lena, and yet everything.
By late August, Lena Grove had trekked from her hometown in Alabama into Mississippi, a voyage lasting a little less than a month. Her goal? To find Lucas Birch. Birch left the state after Lena became pregnant, promised to send for her, and then vanished. Lena, far along in her pregnancy, endured the grueling terrain, walking and, on occasion, hitching wagon rides.
I was a little over 20 years old when I set out to find my sweet Lucas. Times were difficult, the roads jagged, the landscape cumbersome, but I tried to make the best of everything, especially with those generous wagon drivers helping me out here and there.
Lena Grove, this drifter in pursuit of a hopeless cause, does not feel embarrassed to tell her experiences to the people she meets in a place she has just reached. Supposedly, she should have kept silent, for she did not belong to that community, and, moreover, she was far from being a representative of its views and laws. Lena had lost her virginity before marriage, a thing condemned by the social order. The father of her child deserted her, hence she was not married. In sharing her story to everybody, without shame, fear, or self-judgment, Lena seemed to establish links to people, and as a result, she was not a loner. Undoubtedly, Lena Grove makes her own way towards her ultimate destination, Jefferson, the place of refuge for the hidden Lucas Birch. The fact that Lena does not look responsible for her actions and innocent or even naive provides that there's an image of herself that cannot cause repulsion.
Right before I arrived in Jefferson, I was just minding my own business, walking down the dirt path, holding those old leather shoes. A nice man by the name of Armstead rode up in his carriage and kindly offered me a ride. I said that just a drive to Jefferson would do, but he was quite the gentleman. He let me stay at his farm overnight where his wife, older and hardened yet very wise, whipped me up a generous breakfast and kindly gave me some money for the road. The next day we continued on to Jefferson, and he was still a gentleman. He even told me that I would find a man by the name of Bunch in Jefferson. It wasn't Birch, but I thought that Bunch was close enough, so we kept on towards Jefferson.
To get a deeper look into the Armstead's point of view, Calvin Connors, author of Lena Grove, Earth Mother, and professor of Southern Culture at Stanford University, ventured to the Jefferson archives. Here, Connors located the Armstead couple's private journal, not to mention Jefferson police case files, including profiles on Lena Grove, Joanna Burden, Byron Bunch, and Joe Christmas.
Based on the account of the Armsteads, as comprised with all the investigational findings and personal narratives surrounding the fire of the Burden house, Mr. Armstead detailed Lena's smallest abnormalities. He noticed her immobility, yet also described the fact that she carried her shoes when encountering her, perhaps demonstrating the woman's dedication to her child's father. Also, he reported Lena's calm appearance, almost too calm. Mrs. Armstead, on the other hand, did not necessarily accept Lena, yet she understood the connection between the two through womanhood. They both connected through maternal instinct, as Armstead understood that pregnancy bears innumerable difficulties, especially when going through it alone.
On Saturday, August 18th, Mr. Armstead assisted Lena in finding an additional ride directly to Jefferson. Though he saw Lena's situation as somewhat hopeless, he believed that a charm would steer her through her difficulty. As Lena arrived in town, she viewed the plumes of smoke coming from the birding house. Here, she entered the planing mill. At this point, she encountered Byron Bunch, a labourer at the mill, known for working Saturdays because he worried that he would fall into mischief if taking the day off. Bunch, rigidly set in his ways of labour, superficial relationships, and insincere adherence to his rural church, for the man directed the choir, talked with Lena that afternoon. Grove, exercising a natural appeal, freely engaged in conversation with this mill worker, thus drawing him into a hunt for Lucas Birch. In Lena's personal journal, she expounds on her experiences. She describes, "That's where I met Byron Bunch. Early 30s, weary from his job at the planing mill, but I could just sense a certain lightness in him. I told him about my travels, and he about the whole incident with the fire and the two Joes at the Burden household. Being curious about the whole thing, I came to learn that this Joe Brown had a white scar by his mouth. Then and there, I knew it was my Lucas."
Little did Lena know that by this chance meeting, she would perpetuate further encounters with Mr. Bunch. Byron's first meeting with Lena almost immediately changed his character. He slowly begins his transformation from hollow, chivalrous workhorse to determined and infatuated man. His associate, Reverend Gale Hightower, implores Byron to separate himself from Lena and the corruption that may come with her wedlock child. But Byron refuses. Instead, he uses every fiber of his being to assist Lena in any way that he can, even if it means separating her from the father of her child.
That night, Lena stayed in Mrs. Beard's boarding house. By Wednesday the following week, she stayed in the cabin on the Burden property, and, on the next Monday, Lena gave birth to a child.
Leading up to the birth of Lena's child, she experiences innumerable hardships and obstacles. Not only does she try to find Lucas, but she must also continue carrying her child. Even when in labor and after the birth, she still cannot find any rest. Mrs. Hines, the grandmother of Joe Christmas, who travels to Jefferson in search of her grandchild, assists with the birth, but dangerously jeopardizes it. Bereft of Joe as a grandchild, she becomes flooded with maternal instinct at the sight of the newborn child and attempts to steal him away, screaming that the child is her Joey.
In a way, comparable to Byron Bunch's role but in different aspects, Hightower assumes the role of a father when he officiates the birth of Lena's child. His first attempt to do this, with the black woman whom he aids, transpired as a vain endeavour, as the child was stillborn. But in Hightower's second attempt, he delivers into the world a living child. Lena, from one viewpoint, can be compared to a mythic figure. Within the context of Jefferson's history, she stands as the Earth Mother. The woman's first name, Lena, can be linked to Helen, the Spartan princess assumed to have caused the Trojan War. Etymology links Helen to the Greek words denoting the brightness of light. Grove, Lena's patronym, is likewise associated with mythic suggestions. For example, the Ephesian Diana, the Roman goddess described by Fraser in The Golden Bough, retained a cult that celebrated in a sacred grove in the Alban Hills. Nevertheless, Lena evokes not only pagan goddesses. Lena's palm leaf fan may remind one of Mary, the Virgin Mother, who finds her meek Joseph in Byron Bunch. However, one cannot simply catalogue Lena as another Earth Mother and leave it go at that. From a historical perspective, she is more or less a replica of her archetypal models. As compared to Lena, Mary's account blatantly ignores the role of sexuality and the procreative function of the male. Nevertheless, everything seems to suggest that the identity of the father does not really matter, and that there is no need to find him promptly. If it is not Birch, it will be Bunch. In the last stages of Lena's documented journey within the limits of Jefferson, the family triad is restored. But even then, Byron Bunch, the future husband and father, emerges as an intruder, an alien to the fused couple formed by child and mother. Lena Grove, therefore, emerged as a light in August. Though she herself may not have recognized it, she possessed the ability to shape lives, stimulating self-revelation among other individuals.